Earlier today, Valve announced that SteamOS 3.7.5 beta is ready to go. Ever since we got our hands on SteamOS with the Steam Deck, a lot of people, myself included, have been waiting patiently. Maybe not patiently. Well, we've been trying to wait patiently, but it's been a really freaking long time. But we've been waiting to get SteamOS on other devices. And recently, you've probably seen like videos from ETA Prime. I think the Fox also did one where they installed SteamOS on a device the SteamOS is not meant for. I have not done that yet, mostly because I've just been using Bazzite instead, and I figured I already have Bazzite as an alternative. Once Valve releases SteamOS, you know, the actual build that they mean to be installed on other devices, then I'm going to give it a shot. And it seems like we are getting really, really close. It could be any time at this point. So where's this coming from? Well, earlier today, Valve announced that SteamOS 3.7.5 beta is ready to go. They do say that this is an opt-in beta, so like if you want to check this stuff out, you can. I have not installed it on my Steam Deck yet, but I will be doing so probably sometime next week. So look for a video after I've had some time with it. But if you want to install it, all you have to do is go into Settings, System, and then System Update Channel. If you go into there, you can then switch it over to the beta and try out SteamOS 3.7.5. If you've done that and you're watching this video, leave a comment down below and let me know what's your experience been like. All right, let's talk about the changes that are coming to SteamOS 3.7.5 because they are big changes. These changes are the first time that Valve has been pushing these big changes to the beta channel. Up until now, all of these changes were available in the preview channel. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Valve basically has three different channels that they update. They have the preview channel, which gets the latest updates but is the most janky. There's the beta channel, which comes after the preview channel. There's a little less bugs, but you have to wait a little bit longer. And then there is stable, which has the fewest number of bugs, and you have to wait the longest to get those updates. I will say that when the Steam Deck first came out, Valve was updating on a very, very rapid cadence, but as they have, I'm going to say, matured the operating system, it has not been as necessary for them to update as often because they've got most of the features that people really want. Now they're just polishing, essentially. And polishing, you know, the time between those polishing patches takes a little bit longer each time. If you want to get those faster patches, head into the preview build. This is the beta build, so if you've already been on preview, you already know some of this stuff, but let's see what they've updated. So first off, they've updated to a new Arch Linux base. If you are unfamiliar with Arch Linux, basically Valve built SteamOS 3 on top of Arch Linux. Think of that as like its base, its building block. Every once in a while, the team behind Arch Linux updates to a new base. And then roughly about once a year, Valve adopts that new base as the new building blocks that it then stacks SteamOS stuff on top of. They are now updating the Linux kernel to 6.11. They've given us new graphics drivers. So I expect that you're going to have to recompile all of your shaders. You know, when you launch a game and it says compiling shaders and you're just sitting there waiting for them. That's the kind of thing that you're probably going to be doing here, or downloading new shaders because we have new drivers, that kind of thing. Desktop mode now ships with Plasma 6.2.5. I don't really go into desktop mode unless I need to, and Valve did a great job, so I don't need to very often. But if you want to know more about what features you can get in desktop mode, I would recommend you head over to gamingonlinux.com. I'm sure that Liam will have an update about that at some point in the near future, if he doesn't already have something there. It also says beginnings of support for non-Steam Deck handheld. So we're talking about things like the Lenovo Legion Go S. Where is mine? Let me grab mine. So this is the Lenovo Legion Go S. This is the Windows edition, not the Steam edition. The Steam edition is the one that's kind of like a purpley black one. And Valve said that SteamOS for other systems would ship before before the Lenovo Legion Go S actually ships, which is supposed to be happening this month. So all of these things getting pushed into beta makes absolute sense. We're going to be getting SteamOS to be installed on any device that you want, as long as it has an AMD APU, or maybe if you're lucky, an Intel APU, definitely not an NVIDIA APU. But if you are using an AMD stuff, you should be able to just install it and it should work just fine. They also added in support for frame limiting for VRR displays, both internal and external. So if you are docking your Steam Deck and you are hooking it up to your TV, well, that's going to, and your TV happens to be a variable refresh rate display, you're going to be able to limit that frame rate if you need to, depending on what game you're playing. The same goes for things like the Legion Go S, which does have a variable refresh rate display. For those of you who are unfamiliar with variable refresh rate, essentially you have your frame rate, that's what your game is running at, and then you have your refresh rate, that's what your monitor is running at. Variable refresh rate allows the monitor or the screen to change its refresh rate to match the frame rate. So when the frame rate either goes up or goes down, the refresh rate changes with it, and it makes the gameplay feel a whole lot smoother. You feel a lot less hitches in your gameplay, which is really, really good. They also added support for power buttons on Asus and Lenovo handhelds, so they are definitely going to be supporting both, I'm sure, the Asus ROG Ally, the ROG Ally X, the Lenovo Legion Go, the Lenovo Legion Go S, and probably the Lenovo Legion Go 2. So those now will be supporting the power button. It also says here they've improved input support for Asus and Lenovo handhelds. This, I think, is a very important thing because, both the Asus ROG Ally, Ally X, the Lenovo Legion Go, the Lenovo Legion Go S, they all have extra buttons that the Steam Deck might not have. And so when you go to configure things in Steam Input, if those buttons aren't recognized by SteamOS, that's going to be a frustrating experience. So hopefully what that means is that they are now going to recognize all of those extra buttons. And I'm very curious to see how the Legion Go, the original Legion Go, deals with this, because the right Joy-Con of the Legion Go has a bunch of extra inputs on it that are meant to be used on the Windows side of things in mouse mode. I'm wondering if those will be assignable in SteamOS, giving us a ridiculous number of inputs that we will be able to use. Or if mouse mode, where you take the controller off, you put it on its base and you move it around on your desk like a joystick or a mouse, I wonder if those things are going to be usable when you are in SteamOS. I really hope that they are. Not because I want to use them, but because there's people out there who bought these devices specifically because of those features. I'm not one of them. I bought it because of the screen size. But if you want to use that and you can't on SteamOS, that's going to hold people back from switching over from Windows. So I hope that Valve does support that. Under Bluetooth, it looks like we've got some really good news. Two things. One, this one I am very interested in because I use, my AirPod Pros all of the time. I don't remember pairing them with the Steam Deck and trying it out. I might have tried other headphones instead in the past. But it says here that they've got a bug fix for AirPods when using the AAC codec. I'm very interested to see how the latency works out with these. But then they also say Bluetooth controllers can now wake LCD units from sleep. Previously, this was only something that you could do on the OLED model. So basically, let's say that you've got your LCD Steam Deck docked, hooked up to your TV. You pick up a controller that you have paired via Bluetooth to the system. You're now going to be able to wake it up. So you're not going to have to get up, walk across the room, and hit the power button on your Steam Deck. For those of you that dock your Steam Deck on a regular basis and you don't have the OLED model, this is an absolutely fantastic change. And I also think it's important for SteamOS on all of these other devices, because now if I decide to dock my Lenovo Legion Go S or my Asus ROG Ally, and those happen to have SteamOS running on them, I can get that same benefit that I can with my OLED Steam Deck and now my LCD Steam Deck. it also should translate across to all of those other systems as well. Next up, it looks like they have enabled AMD P-State CPU frequency control. I didn't know what this was, so I looked it up. It looks like, though, basically it's a performance scaling driver, so you can determine how performant your CPU, part of your APU, is going to be. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the Steam Deck currently runs on an APU, which is a combination of a CPU and a GPU all on one chip that shares the RAM between both of those systems. This looks like something that allows you to control the frequency of your CPU. As somebody who doesn't get super into the weeds on tech stuff, this seems a little bit above my pay grade, so I would look for somebody like Carrie, aka The Fox, who's a good friend of the channel and is often on my podcast. I would see what he has to say about that before we get too excited, because a lot of times there's things that seem like they're really exciting, but maybe they're not. And if you already understand what, and I want to get this right, P-State CPU frequency control is, let us know in the comments down below. I was just about to skip over desktop mode, and then I saw this. This is actually really interesting. It says speed and robustness improvements when switching between desktop and game mode. So basically, it's going to make it quicker to get between desktop mode and game mode. So if you're somebody that needs to frequently go into desktop mode for something, you're going to save a bunch of time. As you know, you'll save a few seconds every single time that you boot into desktop mode. And any time that they can save you just a few seconds on something that you do all the time, at the end of the day, that's going to save you a lot of time. Moving on from SteamOS, videocards.com just leaked the ROG Ally 2, which also has an Xbox variant, if these images are to be believed. Let's actually take a look at these images. There's two of them. One of them is black, which has an Xbox button, sort of, and I'll explain why I say sort of in just a minute. The other one is white. These look pretty much identical. First off, I want to talk about the ergonomics, because this feels a lot like when I think of the PS Portal, which is this just floating screen. Basically, it looks like they chopped a DualSense in half and slapped a screen between it. This reminds me of that. It actually has grips that look like controller grips. And this looks like it might be really, really comfortable to hold. Although I will say, I think it looks ugly as hell. I do prefer the big, chunky, round grips that are on the Steam Deck, but until we actually got hands-on with something like this, it remains to be seen on whether or not it'll be an ergonomic win or not. And I bet you what's going to happen is half the people who pick one of these up are going to be like, this is the most comfortable thing I've ever had, and half the people who pick it up are going to be like, this thing gives me hand cramps instantaneously. Now, obviously, the big difference between these two is that the black one has an Xbox logo, sort of, on this button right here. It almost looks like it's carved in there, because this is clearly something that is like a prototype. It's a development unit. This is not what it's actually going to look like. And if you are even wondering about that at all, just look how scuffed up and nasty this thing looks. I'm sure that this is not what the final version would be like. I'm sure that it's a prototype of some kind. But the black one has an Xbox logo, and funny enough, it also has ROG down here, just like my Asus ROG Ally does. Videocards.com is also telling us a little bit about the specs of these two systems. The black one is more powerful. It comes with a Z2 Extreme chipset, which we'll get back to that in a second. It runs at about 36 watts. You can see right here for its TDP. It's got 64 gigs of LPDDR5 8533 memory. And then the white model, on the other hand, is using the Aerith Plus chip, which, if you are unfamiliar with the naming conventions, the Van Gogh chipset is the chipset that is in the Steam Deck. That's the APU that runs at 15 watts and is very, very performant and efficient. And then the Aerith Plus chipset is based on that chipset. Now, when we first heard about the Aerith Plus chipset, I think a lot of people, myself included, thought that whatever that chipset was going to be for something that was for Valve. But it looks like it's not just for Valve, because it's going to be used in this ROG Ally 2 system specifically the white one. Let's get back to the Z2 Extreme chipset though. Well, let's get back to that Z2 Extreme chipset. The Z2 Extreme chipset is based on the Z1 Extreme chipset, which came out alongside the Lenovo Legion Go and the Asus ROG Ally. It still ships in both of those systems, and it also ships in the ROG Ally X. The Lenovo Legion Go S ships with the Z2 Go chipset. A lot of people assumed because, you know, Z1 Extreme and then Z2 Go, that the Z2 has a higher number, so it would be more powerful. That's not actually the case. The chipset in the Lenovo Legion Go S is a little weaker than the Z1 Extreme, even though it has a higher number. Hopefully that makes sense to you. This is the Z2 Extreme chipset, which should be more powerful than both the Z1 Extreme chipset and then obviously the Z2 Go chipset. So that's the chipset that's going to be in the Xbox version of the ROG Ally 2. I know, all these versions and twos and numbers are very confusing, so keeping it all straight in my head is kind of crazy. How'd I do? Did I get it? Let's take a look at this TDP number here, 36 watts for the Ryzen Z2 Extreme. That 36 watts means that it's basically double what the Steam Deck is in terms of power consumption, and then plus some, because the Steam Deck runs a maximum of 15 watts. When the Z1 Extreme came out, I believe that went up to 30 watts and maybe up to 35 watts if you plugged it into the wall. I can't remember off the top of my head if that's what happens or not, because I never plug it. I never plug it in to play it. I always play it in handheld without a cord. But anyway, I looked it up on The Verge, and they have this graphic from AMD that compares the Z2 Extreme, the Z2, and the Z2 Go. The Z2 Go chipset is the one that is in the Lenovo Legion Go S. That one has 4 cores, 8 threads, and goes between 15 to 30 watts with 12 graphics cores. The Z2 Extreme has 8 cores, 16 threads, and between 15 and 35 watts, although according to videocards.com, that is now up to 36 watts, and that comes with 16 graphics cores. That is a lot of power. Now, when you look at the ROG Ally X, which was basically Asus's answer to everybody's complaint about the ROG Ally, which was crappy battery life, they decided to just brute force it. Rather than making a more efficient chip, they just brute forced it by squeezing a big ass battery in there. They put an 80-watt battery in the ROG Ally X. We don't have any information about how big the battery is in this device, but I hope it's got a really big ass battery, because 36 watts, you are going to burn through that battery very, very quickly. All right, moving on, let's talk about the RAM. 64 gigs of RAM. That is concerning. Not because I think it's overkill. I always like to have extra RAM if I can, but that's going to be expensive. It's going to be real expensive. I mean, look, when you are talking about PC, most of the time you have RAM for your system, and then you have separate RAM for your video card. And like, I was just listening to Digital Foundry yesterday, and they were talking about, 8 gigabyte video cards and that kind of thing. This is going to share 64 gigabytes of RAM between your APU, or between your GPU and your CPU. And you're going to be able to configure that based on what is best for you. 64 gigs is a crazy amount. I'm okay with having a crazy amount, but I'm not okay with paying a crazy price. And this thing seems like it's going to be very, very expensive, especially because we just saw that Lenovo had to raise the price of the Lenovo Legion Go S thanks to the tariffs. So how much is this thing going to cost? I'm betting that this thing costs $1,000 for the base model. If we're talking about the black one, the white one is a lot less powerful. It has a much more efficient chipset if it's the Aerith Plus chipset, which is based on the Van Gogh chipset. The Van Gogh chipset is incredibly energy efficient, and therefore you're going to have longer battery life on that one, unless they match it by just brute forcing a giant battery inside these things. So can they do that? Well, let's take a look. I'm scrolling way down here on the bottom, and this looks like to be the white one. This looks crazy thick to me. Like, I cannot picture how big this is. This thing looks like a chonky boy. Is it that big because they are putting a massive battery in there to deal with the fact that they have a 36 watt TDP on this chipset? I don't know, but I'm very interested in finding out because I think that thing looks way too thick, way too unwieldy. How much is this thing gonna friggin' weigh? I don't know. Moving on. Let's scroll back up here. Moving back to the white model. It's got an AMD 4-core 20 watts. This is a lot better than the other one because it's going to be much more energy efficient, or maybe that's why they're putting it in this model. This is probably going to be the cheap version. Both of them have a 7-inch 120 hertz display. No word on whether or not this is going to be a 16:10 or 16:9. I'm going to assume this is going to be a 16:9 aspect ratio because the ROG Ally is a 16:9. The ROG Ally X is a 16:9. The black version is an Xbox version. Xbox gets hooked up to a TV, which is also 16:9. So I just am going to assume that that is a 16:9 system. It doesn't say if it's a variable refresh rate display. I'm also going to assume that it is, and that it's not an OLED display, because OLED VRR displays are very expensive and not likely to be put in devices like this. And if you ask most people who have experienced both OLED and variable refresh rate, they would probably say, I will take a very good traditional non-OLED display that has variable refresh rate over OLED that doesn't have variable refresh rate. That being said, I'm talking about a good display. I'm not talking about a crappy display. We want to have a good display. So Asus has done really well with the displays. Their laptops have some of the best screens that I have ever seen. And when the ROG Ally came out, that's the thing that everybody said about it. This screen is freaking amazing, and it was. Although I would say currently the one to beat is the Lenovo Legion Go S. This LCD screen is extremely good. Other pieces of information that we've got from this, it says the system includes 2 USB-C connectors on the top. Side view photos show the thickness of the new handheld from this. Look at this angle, man. I can't get over how thick that is. Here's the big question though. Microsoft, I believe it was at CES, when they were on stage with Valve and they were on stage with Lenovo when they were unveiling this thing, one of the things that Microsoft committed to right around that same time was that they were going to be shipping an operating system update this year for Windows that made it more controller friendly. Does that come out with the ROG Ally 2? I think that it should. I think that that's exactly what they need to do. If they just ship it and it just has the same Windows interface that we all have seen before, I think that that's going to be a mistake. And if you make that mistake on top of really expensive prices, then nobody is going to be buying these things. On the same token, Valve is shipping SteamOS, and I can't speak for anybody else, but unless Microsoft ships their UI update for Windows to make it more controller friendly, there's a 0% chance that I will be running Windows on these machines. I'll install Bazite or I will be installing SteamOS. But what do you guys think of SteamOS 3.7.5? Do you think it's going to be shipping before or after the end of the month? Let me know in the comment section down below that like button. Let me know what you think of the ROG Ally 2. What is your price that you think the ROG Ally 2, the black version, is going to ship at? I think that thing, you know what? I don't want to skew the results. I want to know what you guys really think about that price. What do you think that this thing's going to cost? And then what do you think it's going to cost with the tariffs on top of that? Let me know in the comment section down below that like button. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. From the Nerd Nest, I'm Bill. Stay rad. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye, everybody.